Hello, everyone. My name is Sandy Rivas, and I am a senior community manager, senior program manager here at Microsoft, and I own the Power BI community. And I'm very excited today to have our second event in our AAA Live community events, where we are welcoming Amir Netz, who is a technical fellow here at Microsoft. And he's here to join us and answer your questions, and we're going to just jump right in. So I'm going to hand it over to Amir to introduce himself and tell us a bit more about him, and then we'll get into the questions. So here we go, Amir.
Thank you, Sandy. Hello, everybody. So I'm Amir Netz. I'm the CTO of Power BI. I've been at Microsoft for 23 years almost right now, and working on BI pretty much the whole time. And you might remember me from those old timers may remember me from the days of SQL Server analysis services and SQL Server reporting services. And of course, all the technology are now part of the Power BI product. I'm really excited to have this chance to have a chat with you guys and answer any question you have. There will be things that I don't know and things that we, that we will have to take a pass on, but I'll try to be as open and forthcoming as possible. So let's get started.
Perfect. Okay. Our first question is from Hans Christensen, and he's saying, disable or prevent Teams from auto-creating app workspace. Please introduce a global setting to prevent Teams from creating Power BI app workspace automatically when creating a new team. As the new workspaces are detached from teams and groups, this should be a setting to prevent the app workspaces being clotted with empty workspaces from all of our teams.
Yeah, so I believe that the new workspaces that we are releasing, and we are at the advanced stage called Workspaces V2, which you guys can use as a preview. And I think we just gave a heads up that we're going to allow a migration facility from V1 to V2. All of the V2 facility workspaces are not tied to the teams and office groups infrastructure. So you don't get this kind of a tie-in that when you create a group, it also creates a workspace. Eventually, we are going to deprecate, and I think this will happen in the coming year. We're going to completely deprecate V1. So basically, it was running side by side. Now we can do the migration. Then they become the default, and eventually, we're just going to force migrate everybody from Workspaces V1 to Workspaces V2, and that's kind of the sequence. We are very careful about it. We know people invested a lot of effort in the V1. We want to be very sure that that work is not, we're not going to disrupt anything. But yes, the V2, which is you should all be trying to use V2 as much as possible. This is now disconnected from the teams and groups infrastructure, so you don't get this automatic creation.
Okay, great, thank you. Our next question is from Mim. Power BI is nearly perfect for all my current business cases. My only issue is the limitation of maps to 30,000 points. Is there any plan to increase the number of points to 70,000 or something like that? Due to time zone difference, he couldn't participate live. So that's why he's asking this question here.
Yeah, so it's a really good question by Mim, and we know Mim for many years. I love reading his comments on the blog and on Twitter. It's something we are looking at. I don't want to say that it's something that we have right now, concrete plans, and I'm not going to tell me, hey, wait within the next 3 or 4 or 5 months it's going to happen. But it's something that the whole, we're looking very closely at 2 topics. One is the issue of performance, which we know we have some really amazing plans on how to make performance be much faster. And when we get the performance right, it allows us to go and scale higher. So I think that you'll see it as a 1-2 punch. A lot of performance improvements are going to roll out in the coming months. And then it opens the door to many other improvements, including increasing the number of points.
Wonderful. Our next question is from Fred. Managing row-level security. Any plans to have the ability to systematically audit the results of RLS rules for each role? We can export the rules from Veripack Analyzer now, but this doesn't show the impact of fact tables restricted by dimensions.
Yeah, so I would admit that I'm not really familiar with the details of the plans there, but I'll make a general statement. The whole notion of information management of the assets that you have in Power BI, the ability to do auditability and ensure compliance, and make sure that you have a complete framework for getting every piece of metadata is something that is very top of mind for us. And there's a lot of work that we are doing into exposing it. And you've seen some of the lineage view that we have provided. You're going to see integration with metadata management tool that is in the works. Some of them is going to be from Microsoft. So, and our goal is to be able to put out as much information as possible to ensure the auditability and the compliance of those artifacts. So while I cannot answer specifically about the RLS rules, I don't know any reason why these are not some of the things we can also put out there in the metadata management tool.
Okay, great. Our next question from Christian. What's the best way to hide a workspace and or report for a user or set of users while providing them the app with the app-based experience still?
What is, so I think if you don't share the workspace with that user and you just share the app with the user, then they don't get the workspace. Maybe I'm misunderstanding the question, Christian. If I didn't answer the question, let me know. But generally, I think that our model is that the general model that we have is that the workspace is typically used for the creation of the applications. So think whether it's the IDE, the integrated development environment for the application, and then you build it, and only the people who are the builders typically are the ones that should be in the workspace. And when the application is complete, you publish it to the rest of the population. And thus, the rest of the population of the users should not be it should not be in the workspace and should not be seeing the workspace if you just don't share it with them.
Okay. Christian also had another question. Will Power BI printing features be improved in future releases, such as sending automated subscription-based reports of tables in Power BI reports?
So yeah, I would say that one thing that we're very excited about is the inclusion of paginated reports into the Power BI product, which is, paginated report. One thing that is really great about them is they're really designed to be produced as printed documents or soft documents like PDFs, but the whole notion of a physical layout with pages and headers and footers is something that is really at the heart of paginated reports. So I think, first of all, look at that facility. We have that, and then around paginated report, but not only paginated report, we are going to build and we are already building a whole set of delivery mechanisms into your mailbox, with certainly that the mail is triggered under certain circumstances, like an alert has fired, you're not meeting your quota, you have too many bugs, then you get the mail, and then that mail will also be personalized. So you get your own filters and your own parameters on the mail, and not just a generic one that everybody gets the same. So that capability of very flexible ability to generate documents, essentially, that could be showing up in your mailbox and you can print them, is something that is very top of mind, and something that you're going to see gradual delivery of these capabilities in the coming months.
Wonderful. All right. Katie has a question. When will mashups with live connections be available?
This is something that is top priority for us. We have a very large team that is working on it. This is something that, we call it composite models, and you'll start hearing in the coming, in the first half of next year, you'll start seeing more of us talking more and maybe showing more of that. It's really the ability to create the composite models. It's like we already have something called composite model, but the new composite models allow you to go and compose models that you don't own with additional data that you have and mash it up together to create a new model. This is great for when there is a centralized model that perhaps is maintained by your professional team, BI team or IT team, that is producing the official version of the data, and then at the edge in the business unit you want to customize and add more information, additional hierarchies, and reach the data, but you don't want to touch the central model. You just want to extend it. So that's something that very, very top of mind, lots of investment. It's a journey of 2 years for us. And we think that in the first half of next year, we'll be able to start sharing it outside. This is maybe number one request from our enterprise customers.
Wonderful. Yeah, I'm excited about that too. Okay, our next question. Will Power BI be updated to allow conditional formatting to work on total rows and total columns?
Yes, at some point. I don't know yet exactly when. I think that you will see more and more of these kind of. See, we are now at Power BI is kind of really in an interesting phase right now where a lot of the fundamentals have been completed a long time ago, and now we're getting to the long tail, many of small features. And I know those small features are very important to some people, but there are a lot of small features that are very important to some people. So at this point, the order in which we are going to execute in this request and that request is, to be very honest, going to be highly dependent on the ranking that we are going to see them showing up in ideas.powerbi.com. So if you care about the feature, evangelize for it, recruit more supporters, and make it float up the list of the features in ideas.powerbi.com, and then the team will pay attention to it. There are about 16 or 17,000 requests for features in the database there, and the team certainly cannot just address each one of them directly. So we just look at the top of the list. And I think right now, to get into consideration, you need to be a couple of thousands of votes for us to pay attention, to be very honest, unless it's something that is really, really tiny, very easy for us. So I don't know where this feature fits in the list, but I think the general rule is if it's high, we'll take it on. If it's low, make sure to make it higher so we can take it on. It's just a question of that is where we are.
And I put a link in there with the ideas.powerbi.com. So if it's out there, go vote for it. If it's not, create an idea out there so people can vote for it and get it up. As Amir said, the team does use the ideas portal to determine their roadmap. So it's very important to make your voice known there.
I will say I personally, about once a week, goes in there, read both the top vote getter and also there's a section called Hot, which I guess it is the ideas that even though they're not necessarily the top vote getters, but they are the one that are getting the most votes in the recent couple of weeks or weeks. And it's really helped me to know where you guys are and what you guys are thinking about, what bothers you, and the rest of the members of the team are doing exactly the same thing. So super, super high in our consideration list is what your votes are.
Right. Great. Okay, the next question might be along the same lines. Are there plans to prepare Power BI for shared development so that we can work with 2 or more people at the same time?
That's a great question. So one of the things that we're doing is building something that we call application lifecycle management, and this is really the beginning of the enterprise grade development environment that we want to have at Power BI, because we know that Power BI kind of has grew from a modest route of self-service where people just on their desktop, creating stuff organically and sharing with their peers. We're seeing these massive application development projects around Power BI, applications that have hundreds of reports and being distributed to tens of thousands of users, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of users. And we know that the requirements are very, very different from self-service to this kind of scale. And so the notion of multiple developers is really top of mind for us. So what you already see is investment in creating separate environments for development, for testing, and for production, creating what we call pipelines. We demonstrated for the first time in Ignite, the Ignite conference, just a couple of weeks back, and it is right now in private preview. And this is just the foundation. One of the things that you'll start seeing is how we integrate also with source control systems, allowing you to do diff on artifacts. And that really is the foundation also to do shared development. So all these things are coming, super high priority for us. It's going to be a journey. It's not going to be something that is just one feature going to solve it all. Building a full enterprise scale development environment is is a massive undertaking, but we are on it.
All right, awesome. And Christian asks, how can you restrict users from manipulating data sets and data flows, but allow them to still share the reports out?
I think that we have a permission. So I'm sure. Wow, I think to stretch my head here, but I think that we have a permission in Workspaces V2. We have permissions that allow you to be a consumer, but not to be a contributor. And I think you have the permission that allows you to share and still not to be a consumer. So not to be a contributor. So contributors have the ability to go and manipulate, create stuff, and so forth. And there are permission to be readers, and some of the readers can also share out. So, but I'll have to go and check. This is kind of one thing that I'm always kind of a bit confused about exactly what permission we have in the workspaces. But that's kind of what I think. So
Okay.
Apologies if I'm getting it a bit wrong.
No worries. Thank you so much. Danny Dennison says, Amir, thanks for your time. Was wondering if you were exploring any semi-premium licensing options. Premium is quite cost prohibitive for a small organization and would love to see some premium features, incremental refresh, paginated reports, etc. for us lowly pro users. Thanks in advance.
So I say, first of all, I'll admit this is one of the most common feedback that I'm getting is, hey, premium is awesome, but the entry point is really more suitable for an enterprise scale deployment. We are smaller work groups. We don't have so many users. We'd love to have these kind of capabilities. Can you guys help us? We got the feedback. It is something that is top of mind for us. We're looking at all sorts of options, exploring, studying. So I want you to know, so while I'm not going to give you the answer that you want today, that yes, here's a solution. I want you to know that we're not ignoring it. It's top of mind. We are studying it, and it's something that we are listening to you, and we are thinking very hard about.
Wonderful. Okay, Sarah asks, in the future, will Power BI add more options to handle multi-dimensional databases, specifically modeling the data?
So that's actually something that I love to hear more from you guys. The role of multidimensional databases is something that we are thinking a lot about. We know that we have a lot of customers who have those multidimensional databases out there, and the question is, how much of a demand is there for us to support them as a native feature of Power BI versus just connecting them where they are on premises or in the cloud in virtual machines? How much more we know that we want to make the interaction faster, but we can have all sorts of options. We can go and invest in that, or we can maybe work on the mainstream product that a model that we have is the tabular model. Should we go and invest in building translations and perspectives? And we already built calculation groups into it, but really close the gap on the tabular side to make it more capable and more similar to the feature set that we have in multidimensional. And that's something that we are kind of weighing back and forth. We're getting a lot of feedback. Love to hear from you guys. Maybe I know it's not really the best forum to answer those questions on your side, but if you guys want to type in your thoughts, if you have an opinion, love to hear that. But it's certainly something that we have very active discussions about what we want to do here, and we're just collecting more data.
Okay, and the next one kind of is along the same lines. Is it on the roadmap to have an option to combine data sets?
Yeah, so this is relating to the question that we had before about the composite models, which is exactly that, the ability to create a join, a union of multiple data sets. And think about it almost like if you're a relational database guy, it's almost creating like a view. So you really don't copy all the data out of the source data sets, but you're creating something, you're creating a new thing that is allowing you to include multiple data sets together, define the relationship between them, so you can do the slicing and dicing, cross-highlighting that work across those data sets, and even add your own data. You can bring data from Excel file, add it as an additional data set into that composite model. So that is the thing I was mentioning before, something that is top priority, lots of people working on it, and I think the next half of next year we'll start sharing stuff out there.
Okay, great. Jesus asks, the new decomposition tree is not working in this moment with reports connect live connection to SSAS on-prem tabular or multi-dimensional. What is the roadmap about this?
So I don't want to say anything about multidimensional. I think it will not work with multidimensional. And so the reason why we have some difficulties is because in order to make decomposition trees work, we had to create enhancements to analysis services. So as everybody remembers, analysis services, the same kind of one that you have in on-premises running SQL Server analysis services or Azure analysis services in the cloud, the same engine is also the engine that is the foundation of Power BI. But in Power BI, when we have, when we want to create a new feature, we can just go in and change the engine to enhance it to support the new feature. Those enhancements are not available yet on premises. Sometimes it will take 2 years before we ship it in the SQL Server 2021 or something like this. I don't know, shipping. So that is the challenge that we have, that some features rely on features that we have only in the latest and greatest analysis services that got built in our build lab just a week ago, and changes every week. Not the one that we get shipped as part of SQL Server, and that ships once every 2 years, and so that's why we have some kind of disparities around it. Make sense?
Yep, great. So Nicholas is wondering if there's going to be any improvements planned for data flow, because they currently have difficulties even on premium capacity and more memory allowed to merge a medium amount of data. So are there any improvements planned for this?
Yes, absolutely. So first of all, one of the things that is coming out very soon and is the high scale engine for data flows that will allow you to work with significantly more information. And then we're looking at additional set of improvement that will allow even larger scale. So absolutely, it's coming.
All right.
I'm excited about what's coming there.
Wonderful. Okay, Luigi asks, can or will Power BI manage sorting not only by rows, but also by columns when you use multiple dimensions on the same matrix custom visual, like multi-dimensional sorting and multi-level?
Luigi, I think this is kind of falling into the same kind of category of features that if you want us to work on that, you have to put it on in ideas.powerbi.com and master the support for it, because it's one of the things we want to. Yeah, we have so many of those requests, and so that's. I'll say there's something that is, depending on who you are and what organizations you are coming from. But we have this program that we are running right now in trial mode. So suppose let's have this scenario. Suppose you're not a small business. You're part of a very large organization, and you have an application and want to release to thousands of users, and there's just one feature, absolutely one feature that Power BI doesn't have, and you just have to have that feature. Well, one of the things that we offer you is to send a developer to join the Power BI team to build that feature inside. So that's another way of not just waiting for Power BI for Power BI to come up and go through the list of all the 16,000 ideas we have in ideas.powerbi.com to get your idea, but actually take your own destiny in your own hands. Send a developer to the Power BI team. There's a whole process. I'm not going to go through that, but basically you can make sure that feature has become part of Power BI. Now, it's not for everybody, and sending a developer to Redmond is not necessarily the easiest thing for people to do. If you don't have a developer, we can connect you with people who are qualified to do the work for you. We don't charge for that, but some other people, if you hire a developer to do that, it will cost you that time. But it's certainly an option for people who are organizations incredibly passionate about a capability and just, we'll do anything to get it.
That's awesome. That's really exciting to hear. So people can take control in getting these features developed. And what I'll do is I'll connect with Amir and get this information on who you would contact. If this is something you're interested in, then we'll post this in the follow-up chat to this event. So then you'll know how to follow up on that.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, Nora asks, is there ever going to be an easier way to figure out which Power BI content is shared with each user? You have to look individually at each report or app right now, which is really frustrating.
So I think this is relating back to the question about information management and the investment we're making there. And there is no doubt we are in the early days, and we are now focusing on several things. We're focusing on security. The whole idea of data information protection labeling, the cloud security management, so you can prevent bad guys from trying to get to your data. That's one aspect. Another one is the dependencies between artifacts. So that's the lineage and impact analysis views. And then we talked about the integration with the data catalog. And that is a thing where a lot of this kind of analysis of who can see what and so forth, that is really going to be the right place for these things to show up. So this is ongoing work in progress. It will take us several more months, but yes, the answer is we want to really allow you the full visibility as to who has what rights to whom, who shared what with what activities were done in the system, what the dependencies between the data sets. Even to go to the point, we really hope that at some point we'll get to the point where we can tell you when John looked at the data 3 months ago, this is what they saw. So we can actually take you into a time machine to even allow you to see not only who saw what when, but the what really should be able to take you back in time. These are the kind of things that we are obsessed with, and things that we understand that these are critical for many organizations to get the right level of compliance and security that they're looking for.
Wow, to a data geek, that's just like, that sounds really cool. So I'm looking forward to that feature too. Okay, our next question. Inevitably, there are consumers who want to see the data behind the reports. Is there a plan to release the data view of the Power BI desktop application to the Power BI service?
So, I think the answer we have there is really the drill-through capabilities that we have that allow you to go and you can essentially build pages in your report that contain the tables to that level. And it can do it contextually, so it's built part of the application. I don't think we have right now any plans to do it in another way. I would say most of our requests right now is kind of tilting the other way, to be very honest. A customer asking for more and more control to make sure that people cannot see more data than they really, really need to see. So that would be more of our focus, to add more of more granular security capabilities and more restrictive settings. But I think that what you want should probably be solved with drill through, especially when you have paginated report. That's a really good idea to just drill through the paginated report.
Okay, great. Scott asks, the ability to have report subscriptions not include a JPEG of a report. We have healthcare information and concerned that images of data are still being sent through unsecured email.
I'm sorry, so I need to, let's read it again.
Okay, so he's looking to understand if there's going to be an ability to have a report subscription not include a JPEG image of the report. Because they're in the healthcare industry, they don't want images of the data being sent through unsecured email. I
see. Then what? So I'm kind of, that's a really good question, and I'm a little bit struggling with what will the subscription do if it doesn't have the report in it? Just to give you a link to the report, maybe. Another way to do that, perhaps maybe it's a better way to do that, that when you have sensitive data that is going to be, as the subscription is going to apply, then I think that's really the right idea. By the way, this is something that we are working on, so I'll raise to the team. But we have this information protection labels. So if you have something that is confidential, and I send it through a data set that is confidential, and you build a report on top of the data set, so the report itself is confidential, and then you have a subscription to it, and it's sent out, then using, I think that's where we can actually protect the mail, that through a policy that says that when whoever gets that mail cannot forward the mail forward, cannot download the document down to their PC or if they download it's encrypted, they cannot share it forward. And so that is the kind of thing that I think that information protection management capabilities allow us to do. So instead of not including the JPEG, let's just make sure that that JPEG cannot leave that mail that we just sent you and you cannot forward it to anybody else.
Okay, great. So Christian asks, what solution would you choose if you would have a live connection and you would like to you would like to store the daily data for a trending overview? How would you store the past data?
And so I assume that you're doing the live connections. I'm assuming it's direct query here in this example, in this case. And what you have here is the daily data, but you don't in the live connection, but in the direct query, but you don't have the history. I guess it disappeared on them. And I would say that this is kind of this is something I would say that instead of working with the you can do several things. The best thing I think I would do is I would archive the data from the daily process. I'll archive it, maybe use data flows to do that. And then what you have here now is a set of archives which maintain your history. And then you can also maintain for the last day, the live connection, and then you can build a composite model of today's style, not the one that you do with data sets, that really combines the archive with a live connection, and you can get both of them at the same time. That's probably where I would look first.
Okay, great. Ian asks, are there any plans to directly integrate Power BI into PowerPoint for live refreshes instead of only export to PowerPoint option?
So I will make it, so first of all, yes, I'll let you talk about the bigger picture here. So one of the things that we are looking very hard, and I want to see a lot of investment coming in the next 12 months, is how do we really infuse the BI insights into everyday's productivity applications, in Excel, in Word, in PowerPoint, in Outlook, in Teams. In fact, the Teams one we already started shipping. In the Ignite, we showed the new version of integration between Teams and Power BI. But we really believe that people should not need to come to Power BI to get their insights, but the insights should come to them wherever they are. Mm-hmm. So you'll see an increased level of investment in that space. Very, very exciting ideas that we have there. We're working very closely with our friends from the Office team. They're also very excited about the kind of experiences that they can benefit and their users can benefit when they're using Office. So integration with PowerPoint, we know, yes, we get it. We do it ourselves. So many of those PowerPoints include today Power BI charts. I go to every meeting at Microsoft, and those Power BI charts are just pasted into the PowerPoint. And you ask yourself, there must be a better solution. So yes, we're working on a better solution. Cannot give you timelines, but it's certainly top of mind for us.
Great. Okay, Flavio asks, will subscriptions be available in Power BI Report Server?
I don't want to promise that. I would say, Flavio, is I want to be very straightforward here. Most of the effort that we're making is going towards the Power BI service. This is where we see the massive demand. The vast majority of our customers are in the Power BI service. And we look at the Power BI report server not as a destination, but as a stepping stone. So we know that some of you are not ready yet to move to the cloud. You have some restrictions, regulatory restrictions, or the company itself is not there yet mentally. So we want to keep you where you are, keep you happy. So we released the Power BI report server, but we think that sooner or later, and it's a very clear trend in the industry, sooner or later everybody will be in the cloud. So the way our investment in the Power BI report service, generally the way they work is whatever we have that we can just take what we have for the cloud and just package it and just ship it also in the report server. We just do it in a heartbeat. Anything that requires a special work on something that we would not have done for the cloud, purely just for the report server, it's typically harder for it to find its way to the top of the priority list because we have so many requests for features in the service, and the vast majority of our users are sitting on the service. So we just do the right thing for the vast majority of the users. We have to think about the global good hit for everybody. So I think the subscription that you talk about here are not something that we can just take away from the Power BI service and just plug it into the Power BI report server. So I don't want to say that it's coming.
Okay. Okay, Olya asks, can you provide more information regarding new deployment pipelines? In particular, will dev and test workspaces be auto-created for each new pipeline? Also, while doing a tenant inventory via REST API, will we see something like 3 data sets with the same dataset ID returned for each of the workspaces in a pipeline?
Okay, so I think that we create. So when you create a new pipeline, you select the you select the development workspace, and then we give you the option to either, if you already have a test workspace, we can just pick that. We can just tell us about it because we know that some people are, have done, in a very manual way, achieve the same kind of thing that we have in the pipelines. But I think the vast majority of you will just tell Power BI, just create me a new one, and we just create it. So it will be semi-automated. You have to press a button for us to do it, but we will do it. Now, those workspaces are workspaces for any, each one is a full workspace, and every artifact in that workspace has its own GUID, so its own identifier. So even if it's the same data set in 3 workspaces, it's really 3 different data sets, 3 different copies. It can actually have different data inside. So they're not going to get the same identifier. So if you do the querying, you're going to find 3 workspaces, and each workspace will have its own set of artifacts, and each artifact is going to have its own identifier.
Okay, great. Do you have a plan to have an IDE for DAX? Development environment.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. We've been looking at that, and I think that what we found is we have this amazing, wonderful community that have created a set of tools that are very, very popular, whether it's a tabular editor or for example, DAX Studio is another one of those. And people who are practitioners and implementing and building big projects with DAX have done an amazing job of really filling in the gaps. And what we decided to do, certainly in the short and medium term, and nobody knows what will happen in the long term, but short and medium term, is to allow a much tighter integration between these tools and the Power BI desktop, which is our which is the tool I guess virtually every one of you is using for your creation. But instead of having 2 side-by-side tools and are not hard for them to talk to each other, really to look for much tighter integration between the community tools and Power BI desktop. Because it will take us a while to, and maybe it's even a waste for us to try to redo all the great work that the folks from DAX Studio have done. We think and this is an open source tool and has a wonderful community behind it. We think it's the right thing to do is just allow you guys to just have remove friction between that DAX Studio and Power BI desktop. So that's what you'll see us doing, really bringing those community tools closer and closer to Power BI. And really, we love what the community is doing. We just want to empower you to do more of that.
Great. Okay. Lutz asks, will there be an option to correct data in a streaming data set? For example, when an IoT device reports an outlier that skews the live dashboard.
You have to say it again. Sorry.
Okay. Will there be an option to correct data in a streaming data set? For example, when an IoT device reports an outlier that skews a live dashboard, they want to be able to correct that data right there in line.
I see. So I'm not sure exactly if we correct the data, where will we store that data after it was corrected? So Power BI is generally not, the visualization of Power BI generally is not generating new data. Now, what we have is something called data flows, and data flows are generating data. They can also They can also take data and correct it in the sense of doing some quality controls, maybe smooth it, maybe detect. These are things that totally are possible using data flows, but it's not going to be streaming data because data flows just they pull the data out. So one of the pieces of work that we are in, and one of the efforts that we are having is around streaming data. And you already started seeing some of the initial deliverables around streaming data coming through the fast refresh capability that we have. So you can have pages that are constantly refreshing themselves to reflect the latest data. We are enhancing it. There are new capabilities coming to be more selective, not constantly just bombard the source with endless queries, but only send those queries when things are changing. And one of the other things that we're doing is trying to look to see if we can actually connect that stream to the data flows infrastructure. So you can have that data flow logic working on live real-time data. So these are all things that is part of a stream that we have around real-time and streaming data. And so I don't want to commit right now time frame and so forth, but it is something that we're certainly working on.
Okay, great. Next question. How can you have external contributors from outside the company for which the company would have to provide the license for a pro, but set up the system to only be able to invite contributors from a certain email domain?
So we do have, Power BI today have what we call B2B or business to business capabilities that allow you to invite external users from other domains into the Power BI, and then you can assign a license to them, and they can be contributors. So this is a built-in functionality. I urge you to look at the B2B functionality of Power BI. I think that what you ask is fully supported.
Great. Okay, Ian asks, with the enablement of Python, will you be expanding the amount of rows that can be displayed in a custom visual?
So I think that we had a similar question from Mim very early on relating to the number of points that we allow in a visual, and I think that what we said is, hey, we kind of going to have two steps. One is we're going to first work on optimizing Power BI to allow much better performance, because one of the primary reason why we are limiting number of rows and number of points in visuals is because we feel that if we try to add more, then the system will slow down to a level that will not be pleasant. So instead of you guys struggling with how to make Power BI fast when it's hard to make it fast, we just put our own limits on it. So our goal is to make Power BI faster, and once it's become faster, then we can, I would say, relax some of the limits that we put in place to really protect you.
Okay, wonderful. Lutz asks, when can the rows and columns in a matrix visual be rearranged by the end users?
Okay, that's back to the same category of ideas.powerbi.com or send your own developer.
Perfect.
It's not up there in the top list. So, and it's not up there on the top list. It's probably, unless you come and send your own developers to help us with it, and I'm serious about it. We mentioned that we have a program that you can join us and build it. Unless you do that, then you just have to wait until there's enough support for it for us to get to it.
Okay, great. Nicholas asks, might be the same thing. Will calculation group be added soon in Power BI?
So calculation groups are already supported in Power BI, but you cannot author them. That is, you have to use the tabular editor or a similar tool to create those things. And once they're created, then actually they're working in Power BI. Because for Power BI, for even for the old, any version of the desktop, those calculation groups look like just tables. So it should just work. You can put them in slicers. You can put them in. You can embed them in all sort of also visuals. So or include them in visuals, just because they just feel like tables with data. So really, the question is not whether they're supported in Power BI, because they are. The question is, can you author them in Power BI? And I think that this is back to the question about the DAX authoring, have IDE for DAX. And I mentioned the DAX Studio or the tabular editor. And I think that for a little while, and we do hope that at some point will just be a native capability of the desktop. But I think for the coming months, I think that the answer to that is use the tabular editor to create those. And what will happen is one of the things that is going on right now. We're working with the creators of those tools. With Daniel was owning the tabular editor, for example, Daniel Ottinger, and we are, we haven't, so far we have been pretty cagey about saying, yeah, these tools are supported means of creating content in Power BI, because there was the risk of the tools poking into the model that the Power BI desktop is managing and changing underneath the desktop, changing the model in a way that can cause the desktop to get confused and crash, and also bad things like that. And what we're doing is we're working with the community members that own these tools to establish what's allowed and what they should avoid doing, so we can fully support those tools to be, so people can feel safe to use them. And these are amazing tools, and I just encourage everybody to use those.
All right, awesome. Okay, what would be the easiest way to get Dynamics AX into Power BI?
I guess Dynamics AX data into Power BI.
Yes.
So, so I don't know. I really don't know. I would say that there are ways to get the data from Dynamic AX into something they have this kind of data warehousing capability. I forget how it's called in Dynamics AX. So they basically archive the data from Dynamics AX into a SQL Server database. So that's a capability I know already shipping for many years in Dynamics AX. And then Power BI will connect to that SQL Server database. Not an expert in that, so I may be a bit not as accurate, but about my answer. But I think that is the main way. Now we are going to have, when it comes to Dynamics 365 FNO, which is the cloud I would say the cloud version of Dynamics AX. With that, we're going to even much tighter integration. We're working, if you guys don't know, then the Dynamics team is actually part of the same organization that we are part of. We report to the same corporate vice president. And so certainly, naturally, you'll find that we're looking for many opportunities to find integration points. And so a lot of things are happening in terms of integrating the content from Dynamics 365, whether it's CE, customer engagement, or the work that we're doing with the FNO, financials and operations. All this data will land in the Azure Data Lake as data flows of the Power BI will recognize, and we can work with and can done in a fairly low latency. So this is a different path that is, I think, much more integrated than the one with the Dynamics AX on premises.
Okay, wonderful. Joshua asks, how do we join V2 workspaces in preview? I
think you can just go to the admin center and turn it on. I think it's available for public preview. Everybody can join. I haven't done it myself, but I'm sure we can figure it out to give you a screenshot of how to do that. That's just out there. You can do it.
Okay, great. Andrew asks, I'm often asked by clients how I can limit access to reports in one workspace for particular groups in a non-RLS manner, rather than the entire reports themselves. Will we ever get to have multiple apps in workspaces?
So so this is actually a very common request that I hear. People call it a multiple apps in workspaces. And it's a good topic of discussion we have in the team. I think that what you'll find, the thing that we are really heading towards is less multiple apps in workspaces and more granular permissions in workspaces. So you can actually say these reports in my workspace are only going to be shown to these set of users, and these other reports to this other set of users. So when different users are running the same app, they get different content, and you can control which content each group will get, which I think is really the better way to do it. And this is really the modern way to do it. Is look at any other line of business applications. in order to get different access rights to different users, you don't have to create different applications. You just have to have different permissions. So this is where we are heading towards. I think this is kind of the next phase of workgroups phase 2 or V2. And other things are also slated to be related to that. For example, the ability to have folders inside the workspaces V2. So these are all part of the roadmap. It's a long journey. Workspaces V2 is something that we are already a year and a half in, and I think we have another 6 to 12 months to go, my estimate. I hope the team doesn't kill me that I'm saying that. But it's all part of that same journey of really creating a very robust, very scalable, both in content management and in security capabilities in the workspaces.
Okay, great. The next question, do you plan to support the following SSAS features in Power BI in live query mode? The first one being hierarchy and hide members. The second one being measure detail rows expressions.
So I think this is relating to multidimensional. Yeah, you say hide members, it must be multidimensional. So we are looking, so I think that the top priorities for us right now is to make sure that when you connect to multidimensional cubes in Power BI, that the performance is going to be really good. We're not happy with the performance, and I think that I doubt if you are happy with the performance. So that's the most important thing. Now, when it comes to drill through settings, I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever do that, because we kind of taken a different approach with Power BI, which is you have drill through pages. So you right click and you have a beautiful page instead of this very generic table that is out there. So I think that one is probably not going to happen because we don't want to confuse the two concepts of drill through. When it comes to the hierarchy with hide members, and I think that's what we talk about, the ragged hierarchies, that's something that is we want to do. We actually want to have ragged hierarchies also in the tabular models as well. It's a tough one. It's not easy to support, but it's certainly something that we really want to get to do. So I would say first one is probably not. The second one is probably yes, but performance is first.
Okay, great. Erica asks, are there any plans to add functionality for users to subscribe to the export of a grid?
Is there any?
Any plans to add functionality for users to subscribe to the export of a grid?
Oh, no, but it's a good idea. I need to think about it a little bit. We do have one thing I would say, so I'll go a little bit different, okay? I think that we are looking at the paginated reports as a great way to handle exports. One of the reasons why it's really a great way is because they're really designed to scale. They don't have scroll bars. You can generate Excel workbooks out of them. You can generate PDFs out of them. They can be nicely formatted. So it really is a great way. Now, I think that the direction I will probably go with is the ability to go and basically override the default export functionality from a visual to say, when somebody says export, activate this paginated report instead. And then once it's a paginated report, then I think that the next thing is, you can just subscribe to it. So I think that's probably where I would say this is probably a better way for us to go. It's not something that I discuss with anybody, so I'm just making it up, but I think this is the logical direction we'll go to.
Okay, great. Here's a question from Lutz. Will there be an option for programmatic access to a slicer visual? Let's say the event of a user setting one slicer can trigger the setting of another slicer. This is different from bookmarks.
Yes. So you're asking about programmatic, then I would say the answer is yes, and it's probably yes already, in the sense of we have a whole set of APIs that is part of the Power BI embedded capabilities. So you can take a Power BI report and embed it into your own application, wrap it with your own JavaScript code or C# TypeScript code, and basically subscribe to the events that are coming from the visuals, and then you can activate stuff in the other visuals. So I would say that that part is already available. Now, if you really what you wanted to say is that you want an active, this kind of setting to be available as part of the report definition without any code, not really programmatically, then it's one of those things. You just go to ideas.powerbi.com, make your case, get support, and we'll get to it.
Okay, great. The next question from Jason. Love the convergence between Office and Power BI, especially the new ribbon. But why does the color picker in Power BI not indicate which color is selected, like the other Office apps? And he does have an idea posted out there.
So this is actually something that I believe we will just do the right thing ourselves, because for us to be very consistent with Office is a very, very high priority. We do have the belief that as users are coming to Power BI for the first time, they just need to feel at home and just should work like the rest of Office. So any kind of discrepancy that, just like the one you highlighted, I saw there's another one that is a pet peeve of mine that I mentioned, the team. These are all going to be fixed. So we don't have any intention to leave things intentionally to be inconsistent with Office. So I cannot really answer on that specific point, but I think that the notion of color picker and the color picker showing the current color is probably something that's pretty high on our list, because it feels, I'm using Office, I don't know how annoying it will be if it doesn't show the right color.
Okay, great. Well, I think that was the last question we had, Amir. And what I'd like to do is ask people to please fill out this survey that we have out here. And I want to thank you, Amir, for your time here. We really appreciate your time and all the questions you asked and answered. We're going to be publishing these out along with the blog post where people had kudoed for the event. And I want you to stay tuned to the community, because this is, as we mentioned, this is a series of events, AAA, Ask Amanda Anything, Ask Amir Anything, and coming up next will be Ask Arun Anything. And Arun will be joining us after the first of the year, so we'll be giving you more details about that. But thank you again, Amir, for joining us, and thank you everybody else for joining. Please fill out the survey so that we can get your interest on whether we should continue these type of events and if they're of value to you.
And I want to thank everybody. It was a pleasure to be able to interact with you and answer your questions.
Yes, great. Thanks so much, everybody. Bye-bye.